shields up. Welcome or welcome back to the channel. Elevate your energy. It's Jazi, your favorite Kelly reader, spiritual consult, advisor. Okay, eclectic practitioner. So, um, today's video is going to be regarding our weaknesses and triggers. Right, knowing what they are, why that's important, and it's so interesting because even before actually like making myself stop to record this video right now, um, I've allowed myself to observe ways in which that spirit, right, when it visits, how it continues to try and um distract you, right? How it's so important to be able to identify it in real time when it comes up, when it's like picking on you, so to speak, right? And allow yourself to reframe what you're observing as well as respond accordingly. So you're not continuing to perpetuate um the behavior that you're observing that allows that shit to continue. Because like as I've witnessed this for myself today, like living in it real time, it pissed me off. Like it like I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Like it low key was like made me upset. Like what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? Like it's Mother's Day, it's a fucking good day, it's Sunday, right? And it makes sense though because it's a Sunday, right? Sunday is ruled by the sun. Sun also rules our solar plexus, right? The planet, sun energy rules our solar plexus chakra, which also governs your confidence, your willpower, your self-esteem, your ability to take action. It's your masculine energy, right? So it's just like observing the way I felt attacked today, low key, right? So in that, um, I also observed how I got like a few different, Mother's Day messages or whatever. Really grateful, right? So grateful for that. And one in particular, right? A person that sent, one of these messages then follows up with tasks, and requests to do, like that shit can't fucking wait. We can't wait till after a day that is about me. We can't wait till, what I'm saying, after that day is over to put in your requests. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, so I say that to say, okay, why that is relevant to this topic of discussion today is because when you allow yourself to observe and identify where your weak points are, right? Meaning where you find yourself easily triggered by other people or how, certain situations will trigger you on purpose. Like for me, for example, is a lack of consideration, right? That is easily what this situation brought up for me today, right? Where it's just like the lack of consideration in my mind to me is not there, right? And it's just kind of like it's a little irritating, but I'm also very aware of how this spirit, right, this energy um of lack, that's what it is. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you, spirit. So the energy of lack, right? How that's being triggered, how the sun, right, is trying to heal that today. And I'm allowing it. I'm allowing the energy of the sun to heal the lack within me, right? The lack or that tries to visit me, that tries to that's coming up for me to observe, right? I'm, been working on this whole reframing um of how I look at things, how I identify with things, right? And, relinquishing this idea of things being my own, of me, of the ownership of things, right? We don't own our emotions and they're not meant to be owned. That's why so many of us struggle with our emotions because a lot of us haven't realized, let alone implemented the idea and the concept of understanding that your emotions are not yours. Emotions are energy in motion, meaning they're not meant to stay, they're meant to flow, they're meant to be felt and go, right? And when we try to hold on to them as if they're our own, right? By identifying with them, by making them ours, saying my anxiety, my depression, my anger, my rage, my whatever it is, right? You're taking ownership of it, you're identifying with it and making it your own when it's not. And then we wonder why we struggle to let that shit go when it becomes too much to hold because we have other things that are trying to come in play, other experiences that are trying to be had. And we essentially are slowing up that flow, right? It's kind of like when, like when a stream is flowing, right? And there's, something like, let's say a boat or a kayak that's trying to cross it, right? And if that kayak isn't moving at a rate where it's not going to slow the flow down, that becomes a fucking problem for the kayak. You see what I'm saying? And so that's what happens with our bodies when we're trying to stop the flow of like the fucking ocean. That's, of something that is not meant to be contained. You damn right you're going to struggle. You damn right it's going to be challenging because we're essentially trying to, in so many ways of saying it, trying to stop a flow that's not meant to be stopped, right? And that is what we are as energetic beings, as spirits having a human experience. When we try to stop or slow a flow that is not meant to be stopped or flow or stopped or slowed, that's where our challenges are created from, right? And so I'm observing this in real time of how the energy and spirit of lack comes into my awareness, right? That is the sun essentially revealing that, showing where and how and what ways, right, the energy and spirit of lack will come and visit. And so now it's up to me to identify that and be like, oh, I see you. That's what the fuck that is. You're showing up through this person. You're showing up through this situation. You're showing up through this experience in order to make me feel like, or distract me off of my path, to distract me from even recording this fucking video. Okay. Like I was so fucking close to being like, you know what, to letting that energy and spirit of lack take over, really, like literally sit in my driver's seat where I'm sitting right now and drive my fucking car of my body, right? And decide that it's not important enough. This message isn't important enough. That the way my mind is processing this crown load is not significant enough, isn't valuable enough to fucking sit here and record this video and fucking produce it and put it out, publish it. Like, I'm so fucking tired of observing the way these different energies and spirits show up in my day to day, but more so upset and disappointed in the ways that I've allowed it. Right. So, this is me literally showing you in real time, sharing with you, I should say, my accountability. Like I do this on a regular behind the scenes. I don't share it because I just feel like it's what I should be doing anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's I don't need, and not only that, but it's like, it's my way of healing my inner child's need of validation when I was like a child, right? Needing someone to see me, to accept me, to, make me feel like I fucking belong when I haven't fit in at any point in my life. Like, in realizing, understanding, coming to the overstanding that I'm not meant to. That wasn't part of my soul's mission this lifetime, right? It wasn't meant to be to feel that sense of validation from other people. It was to like embody that shit for my fucking self, right? And know that from that place, those that are also in resonance with me on that frequency, right? Us, in a sense, watching the same show, right? That we can come together. It's literally like the same as coming to a movie theater, right? We're all coming to watch the same fucking movie at the same time, meaning that if we're all there in that same place at that same time when that same show is playing, that same movie is playing, that is just a real life, real time example of what it means to be on the same exact timeline, the same exact frequency as someone else, as another version of you. Because that's really what we are to each other. We're all essentially fractals and mirrors of each other, right? Maybe not a whole complete mirror, but a piece of a mirror, right? Because there's experiences that other people are having that you simply are not having at that time. That's why I say fractals, right? So it's not a complete image, it's not a complete scenario, right? But a piece of a scenario is something that we shared. Like this guy that just ran past my car, we shared this scene together where he's in my view, he's in my field of sight, right? I'm able to observe him running past in front of my car, right? We shared that scene, that scenario together, right? And now he's gone, he's out of my awareness, off my radar, and for all I know, he could be on a different timeline right now. He could be in a whole nother reality for all I know, because I'm not observing him anymore, right? So it's just as easy as our awareness changes, you know what I'm saying? It's so important to also identify where your triggers and your weaknesses will come up through these experiences, through other people, in order to keep you off track, in order to keep, because that's how they survive, right? Those lower vibrational frequencies and energies that show up in the form of lack, right? That is how they live. That is what this planet is about. Why it's so fucking dense is because we need to be able to identify this shit when it fucking happens, and then decide, oh, bet I need to move differently then, right? And so by me sitting here in the moment, realizing when I received that message and how it made me feel, I sat with that shit for a little while, right? I didn't decide to start recording. I didn't, allow myself to get all super angry about it either, but I did acknowledge the lack of consideration that it made me feel in that moment, right? The awareness that I was irritated, that I felt like, like I said earlier, that it was just like, damn, you couldn't fucking wait till tomorrow to ask me about something, to do something that you're not even going to be able to even benefit from for who knows how long, for days, for, you know what I'm saying? Like what was being asked of me was nothing that was had nearly as much significance and importance to do today at all. So it was like, why did it feel so necessary to ask, you know what I'm saying, to put in that request on a holiday that is meant to celebrate me? You know what I'm saying? It's just like, and I already know, really, I really know the answer already. And a lot of it, the answer is, the answer is multifaceted and it is layered. But I will say that a lot of the answer is that I know that the person that is triggering, that this is coming through, right? That is triggering this through me, or, that this trigger is being, triggered through, is someone that hasn't practiced self-love enough, who doesn't have that awareness of loving themselves enough to be able to understand when, certain behaviors is really showing them where they're lacking that in themselves, right? So the fact that that person felt the need to shift, right, the intention to shift the spotlight from, where it was to them, just shows where they haven't been giving themselves that type of attention. Or, obviously if they felt the need in that moment to shift, to shift the attention, shift the celebration from one place to another, to shift it from this person to this person, to shift it from you to me. You see what I'm saying? People only feel the need to fucking do shit like that when they are not giving themselves that love and attention that their soul has been essentially asking them for. And so they're outsourcing it by trying to get it through other means, which would be them coming to that spirit, right? That energy of lack coming to me, right? In order to be fed. and I'm just choosing to not fall for it. So simply what I did was I didn't respond. And it's not because I don't care, but it's because I'm giving myself that grace and that space to just simply decide that I'm not going to put myself in a position to say something that I may feel bad about later, right? But also not stress myself out in such a way that forces me to have to respond right away. That forces me to respond before I feel grounded enough to make a proper, to, express myself properly and articulate how I feel in such a way that benefits both of us. I'm not in that place right now, and I can acknowledge that. So, in that, choosing to give myself grace enough to decide I'm not going to force myself to respond if I don't feel grounded enough to do so in a way that I can feel proud of after the fact. I'm not going to force myself to do that. So, but it's because, like I said, going back to the point, it's coming to that overstanding is because I've allowed myself to understand where the shit was, what energy, the root of it, right? That is literally in real time getting to the root of something like a challenge that you're experiencing, how it shows up in different ways in different areas of your life, how it shows up through different people, right? And so instead of me getting mad at the person who sent the message, it instead showed me how, by me pulling on my wisdom, right, that I have my other tools of wisdom that I have, it allowed me to remember, okay, today's a Sunday. The Sunday corresponds to, revelations, to clarity, to things being revealed, showing you, giving you a different perspective, uncovering things, right, giving you a heightened sense of awareness of sight, right, to be able to see things, elevated perception, perspective, different things like that. By me knowing, having that wisdom, pulling on that wisdom, right, and then pulling on the wisdom of of inner self, like inner healing, inner child healing, right, of abandonment wounds and self-love and things like that, trauma, how that comes up. So pulling on that wisdom to be able to put the piece of the puzzle together, realize like, oh, okay, bet that's how lack, right, the spirit of lack is trying to live and survive through myself and my family, right, or people around me, whatever. That is how that energy has been feeding off of us, right? And so by my awareness and seeing how that is, how that's transpiring in real time, it then positions me in a place of power to be able to be like, oh, okay, I see you, and I can now move differently because I know what's happening. I understand the game that's being played here in this particular scenario, right? And from that place, I can then decide, how do I move? Let me not respond how my ego would normally respond, which would be quick, impulsive, ungrounded, angry, right? Unkind, savage, right? But instead, because I allow myself to identify what's actually happening, right, is just simply the spirit of lack, the energy of lack is doing its fucking best to survive in our experience, which means that if it's trying so hard to fucking be here, that must mean that it knows that it can be fed. So from that place of lack, knowing that if the energy of lack is trying so fucking hard to stay in my life, that must mean I'm really motherfucking abundant. Holy fuck. That means I must have more than a fucking enough if the spirit of fucking the opposite feels safe enough to feel like it can stay here, that it can exist here, that it can coexist in my fucking space and take from my abundance. So that just means that if lack is existing in my experience and it feels like it's a lot, that means that on the polar opposite of that must be a whole fucking lot of something great, right? That's what abundance is. You can have an abundance of lack, but you can also have an abundance of money. You can have abundance of joy, but also an abundance of anger and hate, right? So it's just a matter of being able to properly identify exactly what it is, right? Understanding the words that you're using, right? Because you can, like I said, have an abundance of either. So you don't want to just say that I have an abundance of this, I have an abundance of anything that I need, I have massive abundance. Abundance of what? You got to be specific, right? So be specific in identifying these things. Identify your triggers. Identify where you find yourself not as strong as you can be. I don't even want to say weak, because it doesn't have to be a weakness. You're just not as strong there, right? Because it's simply not practiced. It's unknown to you, but it's never because you're incapable, right? So again, when you allow yourself to identify where these weaknesses are, you can then see the spirits and how they try to attack you in those places because it's a weak point, right? Or appear, like I said, a point that you're just not as strong in. So for me, for example, lack will come through people I love to try to get to me, to get me to feed it through them because they know I care. They know I'm going to go above and fucking beyond because it's my people, right? So that means that I have an abundance to give, but I just have to be really mindful of the way I give it. So by me allowing myself to take a step back and not responding, not feeding that energy of lack, right? This person knows that by my lack of response isn't me ignoring them or treating them as if, I don't care, right? They know my heart. So when people know your actual character, they would know that my not responding is nothing for you to take seriously, or not take seriously, but not make personal, right? But instead realize I'm simply not feeding the bullshit, right? It's simply me healing within myself on a fucking Sunday, me healing that within the lack within myself that makes me feel like I have to hurry up and fulfill that need. I have to fulfill their request, even though the request is non-urgent, like to the fucking max, right? Going to the store to get fucking snacks that you can't even fucking have for who knows how long. You know what I'm saying? Like that could have waited. That could have fucking waited for any other fucking day besides today that's supposed to be about me, right? So it's just, but like I said, but when you are so abundant, the polar opposite energies will do its best to come and attack you where you're not as strong. And so I'm grateful and I'm sharing this with you because I'm so grateful for the awareness that it gave me on this Sunday, that the clarity that it showed me, right, through this experience. That was so like, damn, I probably wouldn't have put it together this way had it not happened the way it did. So understand, okay, that when certain shit happens the way it happens, it's divinely orchestrated in that way because there's certain lesson that you're supposed to gain that you can only gain from that angle, right? It's like the same way you take a picture. You can only see certain things when you have it turned to a certain degree, right? The images only look a certain way when the picture is sitting at a certain angle, right? So it's the same with your challenges and these points that we deem as weakness. It's really not. It's just where you're not as strong. Okay, that means it can change. But the more you call yourself weak, okay, and you identify with being weak in any capacity, right, it only perpetuates that energy and you actually do become weaker. But that you don't have to do that. Okay, you don't have to do that to yourself. That's literally working to your own demise. Okay, so let's not do that, right? So allow yourself to identify where life is showing you, right? Even ask for clarity. Show me where I could be stronger, where my, where spiritually I'm being attacked because I'm not as strong there. Show me where those points are, where I'm not as strong, where I can do a little bit better to become more strengthened, right? Be mindful with your words, but ask, put in the request, and then allow the universe to show you, right, through your day-to-day experience where you feel really challenged or most challenged, you know what I'm saying, where it like damn near brings you to tears. If not does, then okay, that's somewhere that I'm not as strong as I could be. That's a beautiful thing to be able to observe, to identify within yourself. So that way people can't catch you fucking slipping because you're already aware. People can't try to catch you on your so-called weak points because you're already aware of that they're there. It's like somebody trying to, hide a pothole from you, but you've already took that route so many fucking times. Hell, you created the damn pothole, so of course you know it's there. You see what I'm saying? Nobody can use against you what you're already aware exists. So if you're fully aware of your points that can be improved a bit better, right? Use that to your advantage. Use that to your advantage. Confirmation. Thank you, Spirit. Confirmation. Use it to your advantage. Let it help you. Let it support you. Let it show you where I can have healthier boundaries, where I need to create boundaries at all with myself and others. Where do I need to show more people like how I want to be treated, right? You show people how to treat you based on what you tolerate and what you allow, right? The standards that you set for yourself is what's going to also be reflected through other people. So, you know what I'm saying? Ask for that. Show me what I need to see. Show me where others are showing me my standards. Where are my boundaries? Do I have any? Right? Do I even have boundaries? And what do those look like? How strong are they? Right? Where do I need to strengthen them and reinforce them? Right? But you can't, have any of that until you allow yourself to identify where you could improve, where you're not as strong as you could be. Right? And if you're having a hard time identifying that, think of where do I feel most attacked most often? Like what area of my life or what situation do I find myself experiencing the most, or more often than not, right? Even if it's not the most, more up there as far as like a frequent experience, right? Where do you find yourself being triggered, or like an area of life that you find yourself being most triggered in, right? That's where you start. So I am going to put up create a listing for one-on-one consultations for those that want to go deeper into this and have someone work with them in real time, like kind of like hold your hand in a sense to support you in reframing these experiences, because you're having a better understanding of them. Once you better understand what the fuck is going on, you then can have align with the solutions to help you navigate it. Okay, the goal is not to get rid of all these things and act like they don't fucking exist. They do, and they have a great purpose, but the point is to allow yourself to align with the clarity about why it's there, what it's trying to teach you, how it's trying to help you, and then you can navigate from there to work with the energy instead of against it. So yeah, that's the message for today. If you did resonate, if it did support you in any way, I would love to hear about it. Please drop a comment down below. Feel free to share the video with someone who may need the message or can use it. Consider subscribing to the channel if you have not. Confirmation. And yeah, until next time. Howdy.